you get something out of it also. As far as I don't know if it was marketing or something.
Addict, like just visualize it. Ninja theory making the evil within.
I'm just saying, like, what are we really doing out here? Are we going to listen to the people that actually put boots on the ground and walk around and talk to people? Yeah, if y'all valued it so much, you armchair quarterbacks, why didn't y'all buy them?
Welcome to the Iron Lords podcast. This was last week because we were live, and it actually came after we were live. Normally we go to
like 2 hours after.
2 hours after.
Who leaks something on a Sunday? Let us have a break.
On a day off. But yeah, shout out to Krafton acquires Tango Gameworks and Hi-Fi Rush IP after Xbox previously had planned to close the studio. So we're gonna check out the official Krafton statement. So they say they're strengthening their global presence through strategic integration of Tango Gameworks and Hi-Fi Rush IP. And they announced it. They said the move that they said they welcomed the talented people of Tango Gameworks to their team, marking an exciting moment in the gaming company's global expansion and its first significant investment in the Japanese video game market. This strategic move will include the rights to Tango Gameworks' acclaimed IP, Hi-Fi Rush. And then they said they bloviate about how positive it was, all the accolades and awards it got. And they said as part of this strategic agreement, Krafton intends to collaborate with Xbox and ZeniMax to ensure a smooth transition and maintain continuity at Tango Gameworks, allowing the talented team to continue developing the Hi-Fi Rush IP and explore future projects. It says Krafton intends to support the Tango Gameworks team to continue its commitment to innovation and delivering fresh experiences to its fans. There will be no impact on the existing game catalog of Evil Within 2, Ghostwire Tokyo, and the original Hi-Fi Rush. They just talk about more about the integration. There was also an article, I believe, shout out to PC Gamer. He talked about the actual staff. And they said about half, 50 in total, of Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks staff will be taken on by new publisher Krafton. So I believe maybe that was like the 50 development people who were remaining, you know what I'm saying, as far as that concern. And I guess the concern is whether or not the rest had either left the industry after the situation had happened or not. So this was the one that broke a lot of energy in the realm. Let's start with Addict first. I'm curious. Now that the dust has settled, people were very upset about Tango being closed. How are you feeling about this situation now?
I guess when it comes down to it, this is the best case scenario that could have happened. Mm-hmm. And as much as I would personally like Microsoft to have picked up the reins, the fact of the matter, it wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather Hi-Fi Rush at least maintain being around than it just getting shut down. Because I do feel like that franchise has potential, and I'm glad that it's able to continue being in production. What I will say is it's interesting that they chose not to sell them. I don't know if it's from the Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't know if Microsoft wasn't interested in selling it or the company wasn't interested in buying it, or I think probably that company was just interested in Hi-Fi Rush. So it's interesting how that went. And the plus, the Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo are unique types of universes. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years we see like TV shows and stuff spawn from those ideals. So maybe that's the reason they didn't sell them. But I do find it interesting that because to me, people were saying someone in my chat did bring up a good point though. Because I was like, look, like the only people I could see making the Evil Within is them, is Tango Studio. And someone said, Addict, like just visualize it. Ninja Theory making the Evil Within. And I was like, you know what? You might be on to something. Because I wasn't the biggest fan of Ghostwire Tokyo, but I did want something future with the Evil Within. But it's like I said, this is the better scenario because at least Hi-Fi Rush survived.
Yes, absolutely. Lord King. This was a big one. I remember when the closing went down. You was going to war. They were coming for you. You said they ain't make no bread. You was in your financial bag, corporate king.
And I told you they was shopping them. And dudes was like, that's Cap, King. Is it Cap now? Or is it Capcom? Like, I'm just saying.
What we doing?
I'm just saying, like, what are we really doing out here? Are we going to listen to the people that actually put boots on the ground and walk around and talk to people? We're not the type of people, like, the level of integrity that we have is a whole different level. Like, you don't have to tell us we on NDA. You don't have to say, yo, don't say this. We'll ask you ahead of time, can we do this? And if not, it's just not. We don't need to be first. But that I was able to say at that point in time because it already came out.
Right.
So I had already carte blanche to say. I could have said it before, but I didn't. So I already had carte blanche to tell. They were shopping dudes. And I surmised this. I surmised they were just giving away Tango, the studio itself, without any of the IPs, and it was going to keep the Hi-Fi Rush IP, keep Ghostwire Tokyo, and keep The Evil Within. And Krafton said, well, Krafton probably popped out of the blue and said, listen, ain't nobody knocking at your door, bro. Nobody's buying your biscuits. Either you're going to throw them in the trash, or you could take this bread for that. But I do like the raisin oatmeal that you do got in the box.
That's high five.
Right? That's high five. I do like, everybody like raisin oatmeal. So
give me that Quaker
oatmeal,
Oats. You got that Quaker Oats?
Exactly. So it was like, yo, if you come up off of the raisin oatmeal, we got a deal. He said, all right, but I'm not giving the finger cookies, and I'm damn sure not giving my butter cookies.
No Evil Within, no Ghostwire.
Right. So he said, all right, cool, deal. So all that, this is why you filthy casuals.
Oh, Lord.
Y'all sit here trying to act like y'all a $1 trillion company, understanding what really goes on. Well, if I was running them, I would have made sure I kept them. Why? Like, why? If they did the metrics, if you hire people to tell you what's good in your company and what's bad in your company, and you don't listen to those people, what do you think is going to happen to the company? You hire smarter people than you in areas that you don't know to tell you how stuff should be. And they have futurists in the company. So they gave a evaluation of ZeniMax after everything was said and done, right? And that came up, that metrics didn't shake out right. And then they went and looked at the titles that they did have and what happened under their hood, and stuff didn't shake out right. So they left it up to ZeniMax. But ultimately, it falls under Xbox, regardless to what, Microsoft. And it went down that way. Sometimes stuff is going to close, like London studios for PlayStation, like Bungie, how it's happening, and like a lot of other companies that don't get to see the light of day. This is the second time Microsoft has actually facilitated the release or sale of a company that they have developed. Yeah, Toys for Bob. And then those people double back and say, I would like to do business with them in the future.
Strategic partnership.
So these things lead you to believe that they said, well, listen, this is not working for us, but it might work for you. If we let you go this way, we can give you per diem work. You can be a 1099 worker. You can still be good. You understand? We don't want to put you on medical and health plans and all that other stuff. But you can do your thing, and we just pay you for your work that you did. That's Toys for Bob's. Krafton, yo, we need to sell them. We love them. We looking for a home for them.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, if y'all valued it so much, you armchair quarterbacks, why didn't y'all buy them? Why didn't y'all y'all did a petition, right? Why didn't y'all do a petition and get a crowdfunding so y'all all could have owned Tango Gameworks and y'all all could have chipped in? Exactly.
You're gonna do a GoFundMe for Tango? Yeah, exactly. What are we doing, King? What are we doing?
I'm just saying, I was so sick and tired of hearing it, right? That it ended up in a great place at the end of the day. At the end of the day, they're with somebody that believes in them, and we all believe that Hi-Fi Rush 2 will come out soon, hopefully, from Tango. And it's definitely going to be multi-plat. It's definitely going to be day and date. They're going to definitely want to recoup whatever money that they put in. But most of all, the devs that did stay, the 50 devs that did stay, have a home. And that's supposed to be championed. And it's also supposed to be championed that Microsoft didn't just change everybody's key code and lock them out the building and just say that's it for it, but also went the extra mile to facilitate a deal. And that's very rare in this industry. Usually you just lock stuff up, close it, and that's it. You know, look at Saber Interactive and stuff like that. You have to look at what's going on in the industry, and you just can't point out one and make an example out of them and don't point out everything that's happening. It's just systemic along the industry. And I just didn't like how like one person was being singled out, like they are the bad apple or the bad actor in this. And it was really economics, and they just didn't fall right on the metrics. That's all.
Fair enough, fair enough. One bad mother. We gotta talk to the OBM, man. What's up? The Tango seems to be saved. How are we feeling now that the dust has settled? What is your assessment of this?
Well, they're half saved, right? Like we, half the studio still did leave before this part of it got purchased.
Yeah.
But in terms of if you were looking for a half to be saved, this is the one that I am the most excited about still having the chance, because kind of going back to one of the things that Attic was talking about, like who would you have make this game or that game? There's certain games that you just really can't hand off to another developer, right? Certain IPs. I think Hi-Fi Rush is one of those that has such a unique personality that you really do want the OG developers who made that working on that, because it would be very difficult just to hand it off to another team unless that team was somebody that was extremely passionate about the IP to begin with. So, which is a hard thing to do with a brand new IP, unlike something that was from the past, like something like a Jet Set Radio. Over a period of time, a bunch of people are going to grow up and become developers that are passionate about that. But so I think this ends up being the best results. And like Microsoft has had a history of trying to not just close some of these studios down. We've seen it in the past, like even previously they spun off. I can't remember who was the small developer that they spun off at the beginning of the Xbox One gen. Made that Local Cycle or whatever that was. I can't remember.
I think I know you talk about. Yeah. You remember them? Yep.
Yeah, we saw what they, we saw what they did with Toys for Bob, and that's generally for PR purposes, for business purposes, especially to kind of maintain your standing in the industry with developers and everybody else. Like, it makes the most sense to me. What that says, though, is the fact that this was really the best outcome. Shows really how, unfortunately, how low the value was, right?
That's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you look at the value of companies, it comes down to the IPs and it comes down to the prestige of the actual studio name itself. Generally, the talent, you can just poach the talent. You don't need to buy a studio to go recruit. You could go recruit, John, and say, hey, bring all your best people, and that's another way to do it. But in this case here, they're able to do just that and go ahead and strike up a deal with Microsoft to get that IP, so that John and team could, continue to work on that. But yeah, I think that highlights the fact that really, I really do take them at the word that they tried to sell them, they couldn't. It is going to be interesting to see what they do with Evil Within, because that actually I think is kind of an underrated IP.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Has a lot of potential, but that is one I could see another team take over. Resident Evil's been around a long time. There's been other types of games in that genre. I think you could bring another team in there, and you could maybe even work with the Capcom or work with one of their teams that's idle or something like that, and try to try something a little bit different within that, because the first two games were kind of different anyways in that series. Right. So
especially when Microsoft themselves said that they're willing to license out IPs to certain people under certain conditions.
Do you guys who do you think's taking? Because I think John's going to take over that studio. it makes the most sense. Like I feel like there's no other person at this point because they bought Hi-Fi Rush, so
Right.
clearly
Yeah.
the
It's his
company
baby,
that
yeah.
bought them has
Yeah.
Hi-Fi Rush at the center of the
Yeah.
studio, and he led the development for Hi-Fi Rush, and it has no studio lead right now. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably going to happen.
It's definitely a safe bet, right? I mean, based on where he's at.
It should happen because that was a risky game, and it actually hit all the marks. Well, all the internal metrics, right, Microsoft? But it just didn't do the internal metrics, right, Microsoft? But I'm just saying.
Yo, you stupid. Oh, I see what you. Wow, kid with the rare slander.
No, I don't like them praising somebody and then suspending them.
Right.
Right? Don't do it. Like,
Yeah.
it looks really, really bad. You didn't have to say anything. You could have let everybody else praise them, but you jumped in on it. And I'm not singling anybody out because they're going to try to attach something to it. It was just sometimes silence is best, right? Especially when you threw up to ZeniMax. I need an evaluation on the staff because we have to cut corners and we have to start letting some people go. And you know that from up top, they tell you got to cut, and you got to cut from certain divisions. It's just, that's how it goes. And you don't have a say so you just do internal metrics. So when you're saying that, you just don't go out praising a certain team, and then you have to cut from there. It just looks really bad.
Well, and especially talking about the metrics, right? Like that was, again, that's another self-inflicted wound. Why do you even gotta? Nobody else, Nintendo doesn't tell you. They'll tell you sales when they hit things, and Sony will as well, like when they hit certain milestones. But nobody goes out there and says, "Hey, they hit every internal metric that we had or exceeded them," things like that. But Microsoft kind of needs to kind of just, and they are stepping back on some of that stuff and get their people on the same page, because obviously one person speaks, doesn't know what's happening behind the scenes. What it looks like they did is after acquiring ABK, they've restructured and they started to look at everything from top to bottom and said, like, what IPs are we working on, and why are we working on these? Why are we spending money working on these IPs when we got all these, idle IPs that are worth, $500 million, $1 billion that are, we're not doing anything with. So they, and that's, unfortunately, I don't think this was a situation where Tango really could have done anything better. I think this is a situation where they bought ZeniMax, and at the time, and I remember Grubb was talking about this, like Arcane and Tango were on the chopping block back before Microsoft.
Yeah.
And they don't really fit into like, and this isn't to like defend them. It's just to understand it, because I was as pissed as everybody else.
Yeah, it was. The streets was hot.
Yeah, I mean, Tango is one of my favorite developers.
Absolutely.
So I like both games, Evil Within and Hi-Fi Rush. So this isn't to defend them, but it does, just kind of understanding the situation. It wasn't like, well, it didn't make enough money, because I hear that a lot. It's like, people talking about, well, then you shouldn't put it on Game Pass. It has nothing to do with that. It really just comes down to the perceived value of the IP and the combination of how they're just this lone studio in Japan,
right?
A small,
like almost like a satellite on the side, like
yeah. It's a small. If this was like a mega studio, if this was From Software, obviously they could sustain themselves all by themselves out in Japan, but there really isn't a support structure for them. In terms of like the collaboration that Microsoft is now
they kind of require, I would say required it, but it seems that a lot of their studios are also like, hey, besides working on the game, you can also help out this team with your tech here, and a lot of development collaboration I'm seeing. Sorry.
No, more than ever. Like, there's stuff that we're finding out now, like with Coalition spinning off and helping out a lot of different studios, with that support studio. And it seems like more than ever, this has been a focus is the collaboration, is probably moving some of their employees from one project to another. When something's ramping up, you kind of move them over here. They're out there in Japan all by themselves. They lost Mikami, right? And he has a lot of the contacts in the industry and has a lot of that pull. So I just think that at the end of the day, it just from a business standpoint, it wouldn't have mattered if Hi-Fi Rush sold twice as much. It still would have been, a AA tier type of IP, right? And that's just kind of like, and I'm not talking about like quality or anything like that, but just really the value, right? Like where's that mind share at? And And if the mind share was bigger, they would have been able to sell that. They would have been able to. There would have been a better opportunity to spin them off, like they were able to do for Toys for Bob. So, so yeah. Long story short, to say all that to say that it's great to see that they get a shot, and John's team is really talented, and the now they can exist with those with a certain expectations, and they're not getting lost in all the other bigger high level strategy of Microsoft, right? So they don't have to worry about that anymore. So yeah, it's good for I think good for everybody at the end of the day.
No doubt. Yeah, look, shout out to Johannes, man. It was really cool to see his tweet. It's like, we back, baby. You know what I'm saying? We in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Like the old Megatron, I still function. What a bit! Starscream! But yeah, they in the building, man. It was really cool to see that, because again, that was one of the ones that the community just, they couldn't figure Microsoft for that one. And we get it. We get the financial. We get the logistics. We get everything that King and OBM is saying is valid, right? And it was just one of those, the community kind of felt like, man, you had a hit under your house, and you had, let's be honest, Chai and 808, like you kind of had your first kind of mascot of the generation in a sense, like, in that sense, how viral it went. Now, obviously, I didn't necessarily agree looking back, hindsight 2020 with the shadow drop, because maybe I think that had something to do with, the proper promotion of the game. But look, we all felt they didn't deserve that fate. How critically acclaimed that game was, that game deserved better. So to see them, alive, now obviously 50 of them, some of them may have gotten jobs already, you know what I'm saying? Some may have been disenchanted, with the games industry, but at least they got the core team, they got John in the building. And yeah, I got to agree with King. We do have to give Xbox some credit in the sense of being persistent to still shop, because the last time I heard was, remember when Matt Booty was talking, and to me kind of alluded that what happens before it gets to studio closure, that you try to exhaust all these different options. And at that point, I'm like, okay, so if you read between the lines, he's kind of saying, hey, we shopped it, the interest really wasn't there, you know what I'm saying, kind of thing. So to see this continue to be shopped in the 11th hour was really cool to see, because I thought the shopping was over, you know what I'm saying, to be honest. So this was a big surprise. Got it.
I feel like it was like a last minute thing. Or either that, or this was an ongoing discussion. There was still, because I do believe that the reason it was harder, or maybe even the reason that they shut down the studio in general, is because what's his name left. I'm not even trying to butcher his name.
Oh, Mikami.
Mikami. So I do feel like once Mikami left, like a lot of the reason that, first off, it was a bundled package. They got Tango from buying Bethesda, but once they lost Mikami, it was like, okay, one of the biggest assets to Tango was the influence he had in Japan, and now he's gone.
Right.
So, and I think with him gone, it was harder to sell that studio to anyone else, because at that point, it's like, okay, so you're trying to sell me a studio, and then on top of that, no one's even leading the studio. It's literally like
you lost your
at this point.
Yeah, you lost your head. And obviously respect to John, but John was doing this project, but it was Mikami's studio. That's a valid point. And now, obviously he left. Get OEM.
No, I was going to say one thing, and I think King pointed it out, but it really hasn't been talked about. I wonder how much of the blowback that came from the studio shutting down. And the noise that the media made regarding Hi-Fi Rush after that news really drove the conversation in terms of, Microsoft shopped them around. It looks like it's over. It looks like there's nothing we can do here. And then, here's another company sitting out there like, oh, well, like watching all the noise, right? Like hearing everybody kind of shouting over this game and be like, hey, maybe there's something in this for us. And I wonder if that was just something that maybe came out of all the aftermath, and maybe would not have been able to get done in just the initial process. Right?
No, it's a good point. I mean, public relations was extremely bad. Let's be real, right? They were getting dragged for this, and then me and Atticus have this conversation. Like, Japan is all about respect and honor, and I don't think that sat well. That you closed the Japanese studio, and then let's be honest, we were like, oh, now all of a sudden you don't seem to have a presence in this year's TGS. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's a direct result of it.
It was lining up. But I'm never going to sit there and say that, like, the reason they're not at TGS is that there's probably a lot of variety.
Right, it could be
reasons why
something
they were
that-
not
right.
at TGS, but it definitely was not a
They
good.
didn't
look
have
in general.
anything for that
Yeah.
region to show. What they did have was the region of Gamescom.
Right.
The problem is right now is Japan is not the battleground. Sony has vacated Japan. Nintendo occupies Japan. Microsoft never has a presence in Japan. Europe is the battleground. Sony strategically placed their battleground in Europe. Microsoft, to erode any type of mind share, they have to be present at Gamescom in a big way, especially in a year where the competitors are not going to be present. So when they're gone, you raise as much ruckus as possible to get the EU to look your way. I understand. And this is also the same thought process that they are doing right now, is how you erode the fan base from within. You send your games over to this place, they like those games, and then they start inquiring where those games come from. Oh, that's a Microsoft game. Oh, that's an Xbox game. Wait a second, that's a Game Pass, but I spent $70. Well, how can I get down? Those type of things. And they're trying to see if that can help change some type of things. But the battleground is Europe, and that's the reason why they were at Tokyo Game Show. They didn't have anything specific for that region. And if you're going there pushing Westerner games, and this is exactly what they've been doing, your stock is going to be at the last shelf in the back of the store, on the floor, in the bottom, next to the cat litter.
Yo, with the TV on the floor, like it's
You know how they do.
with the TV, not the Costco TV on the floor, Jay.
Say, yo, is that Forza in the back next to the kitty litter?
Yeah, it'd be wild over there. But nah, look,
Yeah.
you know, we
That
don't
is
know.
kinda crazy
That
if
is
you think that.
that is wild funny. But look, we don't know exactly, you know, what project, but we have to agree, like you said, the public relations disaster of them closing, you know, the only Japanese studio that they had by proxy, you know, did not look good. So I'm just happy.
It felt like it was like one bad thing after another. That happened, and they're not going to TGS.
Right. It just felt that way, right? So now you see, okay, look, it was still ongoing. Talks to still shop them was still ongoing. And then to me, the key that I don't think it's just, they got rid of them, is because if you look at Krafton's statement, it's like, yo, this is a strategic partnership. This is an integrated. They're looking, the vibe I get from it, you get something out of it also, as far as, I don't know if it was, you know, marketing or some, probably not exclusivity, but you oh, okay, so yeah, that's the vibe I got. Okay, that's how I read. When I look at corporate speak, when you saying all this nice thing and we're working together and positive stuff, you kind of getting some first rights on something. That's the vibe I'm getting. So yeah, this is definitely, you know, more than just that. And last thing I'm just going to say in reference to the IPs, which is interesting, is obviously Microsoft still holds the rights to, you know, the other two, which is Ghostwire. Damn, that's my baby, though. Like nobody gonna grab that joint. And yeah, that I don't know. I feel real spooky with that. But even with them, probably got a little hope. Obviously, I believe John Johannes did work on one of them, right? I believe, or either DLC. He had involvement on some level on one of the more recent ones. I know that for a fact. But we'll see. You know, it is interesting about it. But the thing I do want to point out, in fairness to people who don't like the move, is, you know, I did, even though Krafton, I believe, the PUBG guys, they did the PUBG, but they also was working with the Callisto Protocol guys. And there was some feedback from them that they were like, yo, Krafton didn't give us enough time. We wanted another 3 months, and they kind of rushed us out the door. So people are like, hey, we just hope Hi-Fi gets the right time for 2 to be able to deliver and do what they got to do. But look, at the end of the day...
Oh, you trying to say Krafton is another Sony?
I'm just saying.
Out of the frying pan into the fire?
The head, one of the heads of Callisto Protocol wasn't really happy how they got nudged out the door on their release. They felt they needed another little 3 months. So they did put that out there.
So
on
the
their
board was like, nah, that looked good to me. He said, but he don't got a foot, sir. Looks good to me. We can put that foot in DLC.
So we got to see. It may not be perfect, but at least, like I said, they get to live to fight another day. Shout out to John Johannes and the team. At least, you know,
Yes.
we felt a wrong, and the universe was, you know, was right. And, you know, we got that one, so that's good, man. Salute to them.